It's finally time to see what the characters from Zootopia 2 look like in real life. And trust me, some of them are way more curious than you'd expect. So get ready, because not all of them are as cute as they look in the movie. Let's start with the main characters. Judy Hopps. Judy is one of the most lovable officers in all of Zootopia. But even though she's pretty small, she's extremely fast and agile. And that's because she's mainly based on two real rabbit species. First, we have the European rabbit, which is very fast and athletic, just like Judy during her wild chase scenes. But to make her look fluffier and cuter, they also took inspiration from the cotton-tailed rabbit. And from that combination, Judy Hopps was born. And in case you didn't know, her last name is actually a pretty obvious rabbit joke, because hop in English literally means to jump. So her name is basically Judy Jumpies. And of course, we have to talk about Nick Wilde. We know he's one of the smartest and most solitary characters in Zootopia. He even seems uncomfortable expressing his feelings. And no, my friends, those aren't random traits. Not at all. This handsome fox shares many of the same characteristics as his real-life species. Nick is based on the red fox, the most common and widespread fox in the entire world. They're extremely intelligent, and when it comes to family life, they're not really into big groups. They prefer living with just their partner, and that's it. They don't like being domesticated, and that's where his last name comes from. Wilde. Literally sounds like wild, no matter how you look at it. But now let's move on to one of the most curious characters, Jesus the Lizard. And besides reminding us a lot of Rango, let me tell you, he's not based on just any reptile. This character is inspired by the green basilisk, a real lizard that lives in southern Mexico and other parts of Central America. But why is it so special? Because this creature can actually run across water using its super fast feet. Which immediately brings to mind the biblical miracle of Jesus walking on water. That's why people call it the Jesus Christ lizard. And if you didn't notice, in the movie he has Mexican nationality. But why did Disney make him Mexican? Well, because the animal actually lives in Mexico. On top of that, the name Jesus is very common there, so it ended up being a perfect fit. Next up, we have the elephant seal. This character is a local merchant in the Marshlands neighborhood market. And in real life, elephant seals are some of the biggest and loudest animals in the ocean. Males can weigh up to 4 tons, almost like a small truck, and they have that huge nose that looks like a trunk, which is where they get their name. When they roar, it sounds like an elephant screaming, so just imagine that noise echoing across the beach. Now let's talk about the most stuck-up characters in the movie, the Linxley Family. This entire family is inspired by the Canada lynx, a wild cat that looks incredibly elegant and lives in the snowy regions. Their pointy ears with black tufts work like Wi-Fi antennas to detect prey, and their massive paws act like snowshoes, letting them walk on snow without sinking. And just in case you're wondering, no, they don't feel cold at all. Their fur is thick and long enough to survive extreme temperatures, so giving them sweaters in the movie was basically like putting a parachute on an eagle. But let's leave the arrogance behind and talk about Dr. Fuzbby. The gentle, sweet, and patient therapist is inspired by the quokka, also known as the happiest animal in the world. These little animals live on islands in Australia and literally look like they're smiling all the time. Quokkas can survive with very little water and are extremely curious and friendly, which is why in Zootopia 2, Fuzbby gives off that comforting vibe of someone who listens to you, understands you, and genuinely wants to help. Another very curious character is Anthony, the anteater smuggler. This big guy is inspired by the giant anteater. A fun fact is that in real life, this animal doesn't have teeth, because it doesn't need them. Its tongue can grow up to about 2 feet long. It's very sticky, like double-sided tape, and it allows them to eat thousands of ants and termites every single day. Their bodies are long, their snouts are long, and their tails are incredibly fluffy. Another fun detail about Anthony is that his name is a wordplay based on his species, because obviously he is an anteater, which makes the name Anthony fit perfectly. And of course we have Nibbles Maplestick, the talkative beaver who's an expert in reptiles in Zootopia 2. Beavers are experts at cutting wood thanks to their super strong teeth. So, if one ever comes flying at your finger, well, that's on you. They're so organized that they look like professional construction workers. They can swim and walk on land like it's nothing. We also can't forget about Gary the snake. At first, we all thought he was the villain. But nope. Gary is inspired by the Trimeresurus insularis, a beautiful viper that lives on the islands in Southeast Asia. This snake has thermal sensors called pits, basically built-in infrared cameras that allow it to detect heat and hunt even in complete darkness. It's famous for its bright blue-green colors and its arboreal lifestyle, always perched in trees watching everything. And yes, in case you're wondering, it's very venomous. The reason many of us assumed Gary was the villain at first was simply a reference to the fear most people have of snakes. And since we're talking about massive animals, we cannot forget the walrus. In real life, walruses can weigh over 3,300 pounds and grow nearly 13 feet long. They use their giant tusks to climb onto ice and make space when they gather together, because they're extremely social animals. Their whiskers act like sensors to find clams on the ocean floor, and they can eat thousands in a single day. Including a walrus in Zootopia 2 works perfectly, because the movie wants to show more extreme and diverse species. Next up, we have Officer Paul, the IT specialist of Zootopia 2. He's inspired by a mole, an animal that spends almost its entire life underground. In real life, moles have tiny eyes that they barely use, because their world is all darkness and tunnels. Their fur is designed so dirt doesn't get stuck no matter which direction they move. Like, they always have the perfect hair. And the coolest part is that they have a superpower called the Eimer's organ, located right on their nose, which allows them to detect even the smallest movement underground, almost like a built-in radar. So yeah, it makes perfect sense that he's the tech expert in the movie, hidden, fast, aware of everything, and working behind the scenes. And if you didn't catch it, this was also a reference to Hideo Kojima, the creator of Metal Gear and Death Stranding. Mayor Winddancer, the stylish and handsome mayor, is inspired by a Clydesdale horse, a Scottish breed known for being massive and elegant. These horses can stand nearly 6.5 feet tall and weigh close to a ton, so when one walks by, everyone notices. Their most iconic feature is the feathering on their legs, that fluffy hair that makes it look like they're wearing boots. They're usually dark brown or even black, with white markings that make them look like main characters. Because they're often used in shows, many of them can perform tricks, like counting with their steps, just like we see in the movie. Officer Razorbacks in Zootopia 2 is inspired by a wild boar, one of the toughest and most resilient animals in nature. They have massive tusks, muscular bodies, and fur that looks like armor, basically turning them into small furry tanks. They can run up to 25 miles per hour. So yes, they will catch you. They're incredibly intelligent, almost like dogs, and in many places they become invasive, destroying crops, moving rocks, and causing chaos wherever they go. If you mess with one, they'll charge at you like a video game boss. All of this fits Razorbacks perfectly. Strong, unpredictable, impossible to stop. With that, if something's in my way, I'm going straight through it energy. Then we move on to the ZeBros. The ZeBros. ZeBros are one of the most famous animals in Hollywood movies, like Morty from Madagascar. They love living in groups and are constantly doing silly things, which fits perfectly with what we saw from the ZeBros in the movie. We're always joking around and doing ridiculous stuff. And finally we have the Dik Dik that got stuck inside the tuba. These animals are actually called Madokwa, but they're better known as Dik Diks because the sound they make to warn others of danger. They're incredibly small and lightweight, about the size of a medium chihuahua, which explains how it fit inside the tuba and why it took an elephant to blow it out. A fun fact is that Dwayne Johnson, better known as The Rock, voiced this character in the English version, which makes the joke even better, comparing how massive The Rock is to how tiny a Dik Dik actually is. And that's it, friends. These were all the Zootopia 2 characters in real life. Drop a like and comment if you'd like to see a part 2, and let us know which characters you want us to cover next.